Numbers going up. Here we go.
Toy Power Podcast is a free podcast made possible by the support of our awesome Patreon sponsors. Head to toypowerpodcast.com and see how you can help.
Oh yeah, this is power.
Hello and welcome to Toy Power, the podcast where we talk toys and everything pop culture. G'day, it's Trent here, and it's great to have your company today for episode 398. This week on the show, we hit up an old segment, an oldie but a goodie. In the vintage Toyline retrospective, we then jump into a review of Thunderbolts, and if we have time, State of the Nation. Joining me today in the Toy Power studio, we've got Ben,
G'day.
Frank,
Hello.
and Scotty.
Guys, I look around the room and it occurs to me that we are all still wearing the same clothes from last week when we recorded.
We are.
That's
Yes.
terrible.
Oops.
The same T-shirt.
Should have had a mid-break change.
The smell in this room is terrible.
It is. Apologies. I do like Frank's shirt is emotional support animal with animal from the Muppets.
Yep.
I think that's fantastic. Ben's got I've got that same shirt. That's a great. Is that a
Yeah.
Loot Crate shirt?
Could be.
Yeah, I love that shirt.
Yeah,
It's a
vintage
Turtle
Ninja
shirt.
Turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Scotty with the Doctor Doom. Is it Doctor Doom?
It's from the movie Flash Gordon.
General Clytus.
Yeah,
from
General.
Flash
I haven't
Gordon.
seen it yet, so I have to.
Looks like Skeletor crossed with the Thing.
yeah,
I get that a lot.
yeah,
Not the T-shirt, me. I'm sorry.
wonderful. And yeah, I've got the
Wait.
video game Ninja Turtles.
Did you say you haven't seen
I haven't
the
seen
Flash Gordon movie?
No. Well, I'm waiting for a retro.
Episode
screening.
400
I was gonna
sorted.
Just a live stream of Trent's reaction. Why the fuck am I playing football? Sorry.
I think it has to be watched. It's a drinking game movie. Is it one of those sort of things? Is it like have a drink every time
Yeah.
he throws a football or a football-shaped
Or you
object?
hear a Queen song, you've got to drink.
Yeah.
Right.
sounds good.
Or any time the lip syncing from what Sam Jones is saying doesn't match his voice.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like fun. No, I think it'll be done as either a Radical Rewind or Brett might do a special screening. So I'll get along to that one.
He
And
has
Frank,
mentioned that.
Frank, I looking around your toy room, you've got all the regular stuff: Transformers, Ninja Turtles, Masters of the Universe, and a growing mask collection of the figures with their
Yes.
masks from the original Kenner line. But what is this blue pig / elephant with the pink nose?
That is, if you actually, Scotty, if you feel free to grab that, it's actually a dog. And
Oh,
if you
right.
know anything about Bluey, it is the long dog. And in every episode of Bluey, you can find a long dog.
Is that right?
Somewhere in the episode, like it's hidden in the background, or
Fantastic.
it's cleverly tied into some of the scenery.
It's like
and
a
stuff.
Where's Wally?
Exactly, every single episode. And so that was when we went to Bluey's World in Brisbane.
Right, it's the only way you can get that, the long dog. through
Yeah,
Bluey's?
I haven't seen it. You can get other sort of plush toys related to the show, but that one I was like, I have to get a long
That's
dog
so
and
cool.
just hide it in the room.
Well, there it
So
is.
well done, you found it.
It is on brand. I found it. Yeah, that's great.
Have Moose done a figure of the long dog? Is it Moose that does the toys?
Yeah, Moose Toys do the Bluey line. Not that I'm aware of. Like, I would imagine it would come with like a play set or
Yeah.
whatever. They do, a lot of the bigger sets come with like little cardboard
Yes.
pieces
Yep.
that relate to the scenery. I don't recall a long dog in anything yet.
They've got the gnomes from Hammer Barn.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. They got the gnomes. They got little some of the birds that you see, the bin chickens and
Yep.
and those sorts of references. But I don't recall a long dog in toy
Oh,
form.
it's time.
So,
we have
yeah.
to write into Moose to get them to make a long dog, I
Yeah.
reckon. Very good.
Sweet.
All right. Let's
spot.
jump. Yeah, no, nicely done. I didn't know I was finding the hidden object for the episode. So done, got that out the way. All right, let's jump into a little bit of this.
Vintage Toyline retrospective.
You've got to come back with me.
Doesn't get those wonderful toys.
Now you're an action figure.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
And hey, before you get started,
Mm.
in that little stinger there, Doc Brown, Back to the Future, Can we talk about the best thing the Hot Wheels have ever done?
Yes.
I didn't know I picked up gold until I posted online. Yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
shot us a picture saying, "Hey, I think Hot Wheels have just peaked,
Yep.
and it's the 1940s sort of roadster that Biff Tannen drives.
Yep.
Of course, famously chasing Marty McFly in the first one, goes into a manure, and the Hot Wheels car
Yep.
is that, but covered in manure.
Yeah. It's a poo car.
That's
It's literally a car with a giant turd on top.
amazing.
Peak Hot Wheels. That is fantastic. All right, today our vintage Toyline retrospective is on a relatively small but nonetheless fairly exciting action figure and vehicle line from the 1994
Wow.
film called The Shadow. So this was harkening back to the sort of the 19. We'll go through it. I didn't realize. I thought this was a sort of pulp magazine or pulp comic strip. Those pulp, like the Phantom, those sort of things that came before the comics of the 1940s, like Superman. But the Shadow began its life in the 1930s. Debuted as the mysterious narrator of a radio program, which was the Detective Story Hour. So that debuted in 1930, and then due to popular demand, Street and Smith commissioned writer Walter B. Gibson under the pseudonym Maxwell Grant to develop the character further, which led to the magazine we know, the pulp magazine that debuted in 1931, and it got 282 of the 325 stories that established the Shadow as a crime-fighting vigilante with a network of agents. Hot question for you, which we'll talk a little bit later on. What comic book character did the Shadow inspire?
Batman.
It is
Yep.
Batman. So the dark noir
okay.
style, the split personality, and the sort of the dark Avenger character did inspire, in fact, Batman and a lot of those other style of superheroes of the 40s.
And obviously, Walter B. Gibson being under the pseudonym Maxwell Grant, obviously that's where Maxwell Smart
That's
came
what I was
from.
thinking,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So it lives on. There's lots of little attributes for the spy
yes.
game.
There is no
being-
original IP.
No,
anymore.
there pretty much
it all
isn't.
comes
It's all
from the
borrowed.
30s.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So we got some comic book adaptions in the 1940s. So they published Shadow Comics, and that ran for 101 issues all the way through to 1949. We can see there Shadow Comics, bit of cover art, 10 cents back in 1940. There's the number one. I wonder what that's worth. Copy of that.
Look it up.
Big
Let me
prize
just text
contest.
Brett on the side and he'll get back to me promptly.
Then in the 1970s, DC Comics re-released a 12-issue series by Dennis O'Neil and Michael Culata, returning the Shadow to his noir roots. And we did get publications through the 80s and 90s, and I think there was even some in the 2000s as well. Through Dark Horse, and there was some experimentation that was a bit controversial with fans, but it's been around. It's not one of these probably blockbuster type products, but it's sort of the genesis of that superhero detective style of work and radio and comic and magazine.
So for anyone who doesn't know a thing about the Shadow, can you give us the cliff notes of what he is, what his powers are, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'll go through this. I mean, he essentially has a few different routes, and the movie is the best take that I'm familiar with. And I think he was actually sort of a reformed warlord type character, but essentially he has these psychic powers, so he can sort of strike fear into the heart of his victims, much like Batman with his psychic powers, and sort of they see shadows and they see freak out based on the psychological torment. Essentially, what he looks like, he sort of wears essentially a business suit. So he's just it's like Bruce Wayne without the bat suit, right? Business suit, cape, which was obviously big in the 30s. Everyone got around in capes. He's sort of all in black. But most iconically, he's sort of got this black fedora and a kind of red scarf that sort of billows. I think, and he always sort of in the comic was depicted with this really quite prominent nose, quite sort of hooked nosed. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the general look of him. He had a few villains and allies, which I'll just go through, and you got to have a confidant and agent helping you out if you're getting around in the 1930s. So he had Margot Lane.
Who's the next street over from Lois Lane?
There you go. Very good.
Margot Lane. Yeah, that's right. And there she is getting around in some in her underwear in this very risque.
That's where Wonder Woman comes from, because that's looking very Amazonian
That's right,
outfit
isn't
she's
it?
got going on.
Yeah. It's quite scandalous there. We have Mo Shrevnitz, who's his loyal cab driver and operative, who does feature in the Alec Baldwin 1994 movie. Burbank communications expert who helps coordinate his villains, his missions. And then we have the villain that was depicted in the movie, which is the main villain, Shiwan Khan, and that's his arch nemesis. And of course, as most nefarious villains of that era, they're hell-bent on world domination.
Nothing less.
Yeah, that's what you
And of
want.
course, that's Khan from Star Trek too.
Khan, yes,
Yep.
that's right.
Yep.
Khan! And we've also got the Voodoo Master, the Red Envoy, and Dr. Rodil. McQuino is as well a notable adversary from the Pulp stories. And this is where it gets really interesting with the action figure line, because there is a character in that line that does not even feature in the movie, but is a villain from the comics.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
That's
Okay,
quite,
that's cool.
Quite
Done our
interesting.
homework.
All right, so from pulp to plastic. So, of course, we got a blockbuster, or an attempted blockbuster film in July 1994. A film entitled The Shadow, with the catchphrase, "Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men?" Alec Baldwin portrayed Lamont Cranston, so the alter ego of the Shadow. And in this version, which does deviate from its original roots, he plays essentially a reformed criminal who battles evil using those psychic abilities. Despite its rich visuals, and it is quite a striking film, like it does present quite nicely, and its ambitious scope, the film received mixed reviews, which I think is fair. Only grossing $48 million against a worldwide budget of $40 million. Now, Ben, I know you listen to the What
Yes.
Went Wrong
Yep, love it.
podcast.
Yep.
So they've spent $40 million to make They've spent $40 million
Yep.
to make $48 million at the
Yep.
box office.
Yep.
Is that a success or a failure?
No, failure.
What do you have to do to make that a success? What would they have needed to get to make that
at
a success?
least 60 million, I think, to make it successful. Because what I don't think is there is all the advertising and things like that budget. Some of the extra costs that they don't put on the budget, and just to make it like, to pitch the next movie, you just don't want $8 million against your track record. You want, $28 million or something like that. So no, that's not very good.
It's not a good result. And obviously, the Shadow didn't get any sequels,
And
it
if
was dead in the water.
Yeah,
after that.
if you start, pulling percentages, 8 million profit out of $40 million is not a very high percent. So
this was the Dick Tracy movie, was the 1990, I want to
correct,
say.
1990.
Okay.
Yeah, so sort of on the back of that, I'm trying to think when the Phantom, Billy Zane's The Phantom came out. Similar
I
sort
want to
of
say
era.
that's like 95.
Could
It's
be.
later than this.
Could be, yeah.
95, 96. I could be wrong.
But they're all sort of those really early
attempts
comic
at
books.
superheroes. Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
come on, the 1989 had a pretty darn good
Yeah. Well, that had
movie.
a. But see,
So-
I mean, Batman was, the '66 television series really kept that in the public eye, like not just comics. Whereas I think the Phantom, the Shadow, those sorts of things were really trying to reinvigorate with the movie. So it was a bit. I think it was a higher risk proposition.
Okay, all right, I hear you. What about a few years later, Blade? Save the Marvel Universe.
Yeah. Well, Blade.
Save Marvel as
Yeah.
a
Yes.
company, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they went for it, and I think it succeeded, right?
Yeah.
So
there's only ever going to be one Blade.
How true a word that is.
Now, this is interesting. It had a really quite... it had a mixed crew. You won't recognise all of these names, but you will recognise a few. It was directed by Russell Macaulay, based on a screenplay by David Kopp, produced by Martin Bergman, Willie Bear, and Michael S. Bregman. Sorry, Martin Bregman, Willie Barr, and Michael S. Bregman. These are not names. These are not What Went Wrong alumni that I'm coming across here. The key cast was Alec Baldwin as Lamont Cranston / The Shadow, John Lone as Shiwan Khan, Penelope Ann Miller as Margot Lane, Peter Boyle as Mo Shrivnitz, and Ian McKellen. This must have been one of his early roles. Ian McKellen was in this.
Does he still look old?
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of a Shakespearean actor that
Yes.
got into films quite late in his
Yeah,
career.
yeah.
So he does... Yeah, I think he looks like a middle-aged / elderly man in this, as Dr. Reinhard Lane. I think he was in a Timothy Dalton film as well in maybe the 80s.
Yep.
I think that might have even been one of his first feature films. But it had the wonderful Tim Curry as Farley Claymore, and he... I'm trying to remember the scene, but there is a scene where he's getting a guy to look in the microscope.
Yeah.
And as the guy is tightening the focus, it says, this message comes up that says liar, and these blades come out of the eyepiece. So it's just like, I remember watching that and go, oh, that's so...
Never looking
so-
into a microscope ever
Yeah,
again.
that's so grotesque. So Tim Curry does feature in the film. All right, let's get into the toys. So the toys, essentially, we got 8 basic figures and 1 deluxe electronic figure. And they come on this quite nice, stylized, sort of 1930s film noir-inspired packaging with the Shadow up in the top right-hand corner and a nice sort of purpley green colour palette.
For a movie that's all about shadows and black and red as the sort of your primary colours, it's very colourful.
It is very colourful.
You could imagine that if McFarlane was doing that,
Yeah.
you know, that big sort of swoop behind the figure, that'd be your red, and then everything else is going to be blacks and greys.
yeah.
For sure. They were obviously going down the toy aisles.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing Toxic Crusaders,
Yes.
Ninja Turtles,
94, yeah.
Crash Dummies, maybe
Correct.
around
Yeah.
that.
All those
Uh,
colours.
And they've lightened
And-
it, haven't
and
they?
they've
The palette.
they've really shot for them to be eye catching in the toy aisles, to catch eyes rather than be
Authentic.
noir authentic. Yeah. But I can see the attributes of
You
the
can
noir.
see it's in there.
But it's the yellow and purples and
Correct.
the greens, and it's fluorescent sort of
Yeah.
green and yellow that pop it.
And I think that's really, it's like a sign of the times that they didn't want to stick with the noir look in its totality because it wouldn't look good on the shelves,
Yep.
right? So they've like you
Souped
said, hyped it up. These figures were showcased in 1994 in the Kenner Toy Fair catalogue that probably Colin has a copy of, and which obviously featured their features and playability. We got, so like I said, 8 basic figures, which we'll go through, 4 shadow figures. So half of that wave was the Shadow. One was sort of like a transforming Lamont Cranston in his tux into the Shadow. And then we also got a Mongol warrior and Dr. McQueeno. So the Dr. McQueeno figure was not actually featured in the film Round Out the Line. We got 2 Shiwan Khan figures, who is the main adversary. So really only 3 actual figures that featured in the film, plus 1 other 4 total
Here
different
we are
characters.
complaining about repaints.
Exactly.
Like,
Yep. We got the deluxe electronic figure, which is really cool. I've got this one loose, called Bulletproof Shadow, featuring his eerie laugh, quick draw action, and glowing hypno eyes. The glowing hypno eyes, I believe,
Light piping.
a light piping.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's really effective and it looks really cool. We got 4 vehicles and a collector case, but no playset. So here we can see the 8 figures that were released. They're really, they're quite nice aesthetically. I mean, my favorite of this is the Lamont Cranston transforming Shadow. He's sort of got like a chest plate and a face mask that goes over the top, and you can give him some gloves. And
2 big
that's pretty cool.
pistol guns.
2 big pistols.
Yeah.
And then probably my next favorite is just the traditional The Shadow figure there. But like there's a translucent version of the Shadow called Ambush Shadow. So he's pretty cool. There's Ninja Shadow, where he sort of goes topless, showcasing like his and that actually, when I first got that, I thought that was a villain character,
Right.
like a good old ninja villain.
Yep.
But you can see there at the bottom that Dr. McQuino, who's almost like a voodoo style character, kind of looks
Is
very
it the
tribal.
Bottom row, second in from the right.
Yeah, sort of. He's got green skin or
Yeah,
very
That
pale
yellow
skin.
claw
Yes.
is like a chicken claw. Like it looks like very animal-esque.
Yeah.
The claw.
And I think that's hinged, but it's almost like
Yeah.
this magical effect.
And who's the
that's
one,
going-
the yellow, looks like yellow character with all the red armor that sort of snaps on from the look of that?
Yeah, that's the Shiwan Khan
Right.
variant. So that's the main villain. So he comes in two different versions.
So Scorpion and Sub-Zero colors?
Pretty much, yeah. Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And then you've got the Muscle, which is the guy with the Merv Hughes style moustache and the kind of top knot ponytail. So yeah, they're cool. They're sort of 5-inch. They're got their action features, light piping, translucent, quick draw actions, which is pretty cool. You could also send in to get a free agent ring, so you could be part of the Shadows agency.
Nice.
And it was just a very, very cheap plastic ring that you got. So probably worth 10 cents.
I'd like to know what was the last company to do like mailaways. Like what killed that? Other than the obvious expense associated with it, but like this is 94.
Yeah.
Well,
So
they've
it's
got
got-
to be close to like the end of
Toy Fair
Mailaways.
used to do it for their catalogs and things.
You
Like,
had to send money. These were all
Right.
free.
you clip
mailaways.
out the
Clip
coupon.
out.
Yeah, your shadow points or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah. Oh, listeners,
Yeah,
let
let
us
us
know.
know.
What do you think the last mail away was?
Did anyone do a mail away here?
I didn't think you
No?
could.
Not in Australia.
I-
Because it was
yeah.
always
Yeah.
send it overseas,
Right.
which seemed preposterous at the time.
And I don't think I focused that much on one line ever to
get enough.
Yeah.
enough.
I-
Whereas I dabbled. Sorry, Scott, go.
I did do a mail away.
Oh, yeah?
For
The fridge.
Yes.
G.I. Joe's
Oh,
fridge.
yeah, nice.
I had to eat 6 G.I. Joe ice blocks, save the wrappers, and post them in.
But that was
Yeah.
Australia based.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
there you
in
go.
fine print, it was eat them on the same day. So, darn, Mum, we have to buy 6.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll
Things
take
I
one
do.
for the team.
All right, into the vehicles. So these were really cool. Two sort of deluxe vehicles and two kind of basic price point vehicles. My favorite vehicle here is the Mirage SX100, which is essentially this kind of, I guess you'd call it like a 1930s, 1940s modern sort of
Roadster,
coupe,
yeah.
roadster. It's all black with silver trim, and that I think it's got like missile launching action features. There's also the cab, the transforming cab, and the gimmick of this one, I've got this one boxed and loose as well. So it's got, you flip out the bonnet and there's a gun, you flip out the boot and then there's more guns in that. But you can put the Lamont Cranston in the back seat and then kind of like slide it forward and the Shadow appears in the front seat. As a result of that gimmick, the car is like twice as long as it should be. But it's a cool kind of, cab style.
Is that a
vehicle.
redo of the Dick Tracy?
It's
line?
not. No, it's actually quite a different shape, but it's a similar aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's a lot longer, sleeker, and kind of lower profile.
And these all appeared in the movie, or is some of this a bit of license?
My understanding is the cab is featured quite prominently in the movie, and the Mirage SX100 may as well. I'm not sure about these motorbikes.
Yeah,
I don't think that sidecar
They look a
motorbike
bit
where
fantastical.
they are very fantastical. Yeah, it's like got it almost looks. It clearly looks like a toy company has
Yes.
made a sidecar motorbike.
They'd be crossed between the crash dummies, like they look like the Tyco motorbikes almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the cars almost look like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, very League of
There's a
Extraordinary.
bit of mask inspiration there as well. Just
Yeah.
what looks like a normal cab, but then it pops out all the guns and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have the Showan Khan Serpent bike. So that's the sort of dual. So you've got his goon riding, and you've got the boss just sitting, swinging a sword in a sidecar. It's really odd. And then the Shadow bike is kind of that retro style bike where he's almost lying down forward on it with guns and missiles, etc. So that is pretty much the line. Ben, you got this correct. The cultural impact of the Shadow is profound, notably inspiring the creation of Batman. The character's dark persona, dual identity, and methods of instilling fear in criminals set the template for future superheroes.
So just with the Shadow, where does he get his powers from, or is that ever explained how he can manipulate?
Yeah, I think in the movie it was through sort of like dark magic that he got as a baddie.
Yep.
But I'm not sure. It sounded like that was a deviation from the
from
powers
the comics or whatever.
So I'm not familiar.
And is he rich like Bruce Wayne rich?
Yeah, I don't know if he's Bruce Wayne rich, but I think he is
he's
a bit of a playboy, a bit of a wealthy. So yeah, there's probably that other element to it as well. Now, with these vintage Toyline retrospectives, so we probably know, 1994, I think it's safe to say it was a pretty fiercely competitive arena for toys. And not only from the competition, so other toy makers like Hasbro and Mattel, but also internally from Kenner. Now, I guess at the time, if we think about where it sits, if my memory serves me correctly, Hasbro basically acquired Kenner in 1991, and essentially it was
that early.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Because I've got a Kenner Alien Resurrection.
Sorry.
toy.
So this is legally, right?
Right.
So
okay.
in 1991, they acquire Kenner. So it comes under the Hasbro banner from an ownership perspective.
Yep.
But I think it's as late as like 1996, 97. I
Yes.
think it's 97 that they actually dissolved the Kenner logo.
Well, 97. No, sorry, I've got an Alien Resurrection toy, thanks to Davey Damaged.
Yep.
And it's got it's made by Kenner, but then it's got Hasbro stickers on it.
Well, that's probably the transition.
It's a bit. I love it because it's that history.
It's that
you know,
point.
that point in history.
Yeah, I just done a quick Google. Hasbro acquired Kenner in mid 1991, which at the time was essentially means they'd purchased Tonka.
Yes,
because Tonka had basically
That's
purchased the Kenner name back in 1987.
Yes, that's
So there you
spot
go.
on. So that's the date. But they did keep, and I think they
kept the name.
Like they kept the name, they kept some of the design team, and eventually it sort of got downsized and dissolved, and eventually done. But what else was happening in 1994? We had the Juggernaut phenomenon. I think this might have even been the first wave of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Very, very successful toy line by Bandai.
Kind of a Ninja Turtle killer. If you are.
I guess it was. The other one from Mattel, a new kid on the block, was our friends the Street Sharks. Because when you go into library and you ask what are kids borrowing, they're borrowing books on sharks and they're borrowing books on street crime.
Rollerblades.
That's right. Yeah. So Street Sharks was also...
And also New Kids on the Block, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. And we had, of course, famously, Vin Diesel doing the early Street Sharks promotional work.
No, just on... Okay, all jokes aside, wasn't it sharks and wrestling or something?
Yeah, it was. I think it was sharks and wrestling.
Yeah, cool.
What are kids into? Let's just combine those two things together.
Yes.
And that gives us Street Sharks. Batman, the animated series, I think, was into its, second year.
Yeah.
Second year?
92.
92? Third year?
Yep.
So that was still going quite strong. And it was the final year for G.I. Joe Real American Hero in 1994 as well. So that was still probably not massive over here, but that was going on.
It was still holding on.
Yeah, still a fair bit of product.
Look at the colours. I've got a shot there of the final year figures. And there's a lot of bright colours in there.
Neons.
That speaks volumes to what direction that everything was going with color wise and stuff. Why the Shadow card back is the colors they are. When did Toxic Crusaders come out? Was that 93?
91?
Oh no, 91. Sorry, yes, you're right.
Early 90s, I reckon. Yep.
Alien and Predator came out in 92. You've got what else? 90s.
Crash Test Dummies would have been around there.
Yeah, 93, I think they were. Yeah, so a lot going on in the market.
Oh, there you go. Speaking of 93.
Yeah, 93 Jurassic Park would have come out as well. Blockbuster film and had a pretty good run with the toys as well. So 94, again, we would have seen a lot of Jurassic Park on the shelf. Jurassic Park probably isn't up there with the things like G.I. Joe and some of
It's
those
not
other
known
big
for
products.
its toys
But
more
no,
so than the movie. Yeah.
but it certainly would have been a good seller.
They did quite a few waves of the toys though, and I think dinosaurs are fairly, evergreen.
Yes.
So in any form, yeah.
Beautiful. And that's it. That's pretty much the Shadow in a nutshell.
Oh, cool.
I didn't find a lot of other Shadow merch, so it probably didn't hit like some of these other cartoon
selling
tie-ins.
fedoras and capes. And
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Not the
And
best.
did he? So his main, other than his psychic powers, his main was just guns.
Just
because
guns.
that was the sort
That's
of.
what you do in the 30s.
Yeah,
you take
that's
on
it.
gangsters with guns.
Yep.
Tommy
sure.
guns, handguns,
Excellent.
a lot of shooting. He's got a shotgun. So,
What do
yeah.
you rate the movie?
Look,
Trent?
it's I've seen it twice. I saw it on VHS because I didn't get to a lot of films in the 90s, but we did have a video player, and I did, like, I think I watched The Phantom on VHS,
Yes.
and I watched this on VHS. It's one of those films that you want to like more than probably how it comes out. Like, it just doesn't have the quality in terms of the storytelling. The visuals are quite nice. It's a bit like Dick Tracy in the sense the visuals are probably the standout. But yeah, as a movie, it's not really memorable. Like I can picture, the cab driver driving his cab, and I can sort of picture the microscope flicking eyes into Tim Curry or something, blades into Tim Curry's eyes or what have you. But it's not, and there's a few scenes where he's fighting the villains in the shadows. But that's about it. Whereas if you said, tell me about Batman, I could just go scene one to scene,
Yeah.
it's just super iconic. So I probably give it, it's probably like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
Right.
Something
Okay.
in that.
Yep.
It'd probably, it'd be a
got-
hard watch by today's
It got
standards.
made.
It got made, yeah.
Yeah. It's good comparing it to Dick Tracy. Obviously, Dick Tracy.
I
was a few
prefer
years
Dick
earlier.
Tracy. I think Dick
There
Tracy
was
is
a
a
lot
better
more
film.
stylized as far as
Yeah.
all the makeup and
Yeah.
stuff, the prosthetics they did for the characters and
Yeah,
stuff.
I think if you ranked these films of this era, Dick Tracy would be the best. I'm not saying it's a great film.
Yep.
I think it has, again, its stores from flaws from a storytelling point of view, but the costumes and the set design is exceptional. Then I'd probably go The Phantom, Billy
Really?
Zane's Phantom.
Oh, really?
And then I'd go
Okay,
this.
wow.
Slam evil.
Slam Evil. Yeah. So we don't have a very high bar at this point. But yeah, if you love this film, like, it's probably one of those, I don't know, like, kind of, I don't know, dirty pleasures or guilty. Should say guilty pleasures, not dirty pleasures. Guilty pleasures that you have. You probably watch it because it's got some cringe moments more than anything.
How many other toys have Alec Baldwin as the
Yeah,
star?
true.
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't think of too many because I'm trying to think. Oh, he was in Beetlejuice, wasn't he? Was that Alec Baldwin?
No, yeah, but he did. He
There
was
was a-
decapitated.
Yeah, but
Oh, in the original Kenner
the
one,
original?
did he have one?
yes.
No, it was the waiter. It was the rich guy, the big pudgy.
Yeah, but Baldwin had a figure.
Oh,
But yeah, there was that guy, the art guy.
yeah, the art guy.
But Baldwin had the figure where you could stretch his face. You know where he stretches his face.
Oh,
into
he
that?
did. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's so young in that.
Yeah,
I've
he's so
forgotten.
he's
yeah.
so young.
Yeah.
So that is technically one.
Yes.
But I can't think of too many more.
Okay.
Like what kids'
Listeners,
films
let us
has he
know.
done?
Let us know.
When I saw Jason Momoa pop up last week in our Minecraft
Yeah.
toy, I'm like, oh, he's had Aquaman, and
Yes.
I was trying to think how many Momoa had. He would have had a Khal Drago. He's had a Khal Drago.
Yes,
Funko
of course,
did Game of Thrones.
Yep.
He was Conan at one stage. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a lot of toys
no,
for that, but there was
not of that movie anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. There was a Conan
Yeah,
remake, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Anyone else seen this film? Scotty, have you seen it?
A long
No,
time
I've
ago.
not seen
Very, very long time, man.
Yeah.
Like barely remember it.
But this is like that era where comic book movies were, I guess Superman 78.
Yep.
Batman, the big
Yeah, they're
one.
few and far between.
89. They were
Yeah.
even things like Liam Neeson's Darkman and Howard the Duck and those sort of films. Like that's what we had
Well,
to
I
go.
mean, there's
Yeah.
a Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie
Yes.
and things like that. There's then they had the Hulk series on TV,
Yeah,
and that got
yeah.
a few straight to TV or VHS movies and things like that.
Roger Corman's Fantastic Four.
Yeah, there's that
Yeah.
sort of era of
Yeah,
those
the
Marvel movies. There was
Well,
like a Thor or Captain America.
They did a
one as
lot
well.
of direct-to-TV,
Yes.
Hulk. They
Yeah.
did. And look, technically, the Roger Corman Fantastic Four never got released, so
That's right.
So it doesn't count.
doesn't count.
Ninja Turtles had a
Oh, yes.
Run.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Very good.
Very
All
good.
right, we are on to our next segment, and it is a review of the Thunderbolts movie. Smooth.
I'm Batman.
May the force be with you.
Wise man say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
As you can see,
Now, Wednesday night was the premiere of Thunderbolts, and Sarah got us tickets to that screening. So we went along with Brett and Sarah. Frank was there, Ben was there. Scarlett
Yes,
came
my
along.
daughter
Yeah,
came
that was
along.
cool.
Yep.
I was there. Scotty and Joe were a notable absent, were notably absent because a lot had been going on, and I
Yep,
think you needed
yep.
the early night. Have you seen it since?
I could lie and say no.
He did lie and say no and sold me and Ben for about 2 minutes, and then he's like, "No, I have seen it."
Right. See,
I was going to do a whole bit where I
Right.
just let you guys talk about it, pretending I hadn't seen it, and then when you
You
get
just
to the
start jumping in.
when you get to the post-credit scene, I'm like, actually, I have seen the bloody film.
So with that said, it should go without saying it's been out for close to 2 weeks by the time this episode drops. So we will be talking spoilers. So if you have not seen the film, maybe skip over the last part of this.
If you haven't seen the film, go and see it.
Go see
because
the film.
Honestly, it's really good.
A lot of fun.
Yep.
It
Yep.
is a lot of fun. I didn't do a lot of research into the Thunderbolts, but I think at the dinner beforehand, someone brought up the Sentry.
Yep.
How's the Sentry going to be dealt with? And I'm like, I'm going to Google the Sentry. I probably shouldn't have Googled the Sentry because I kind of. It was a
Found
bit of
out
a build up,
points.
bit of like a secret build up. Like,
Yep.
who is this Bob guy?
Yep.
And he becomes, the all powerful Superman style character
Pretty
in the
much.
universe. And that was, I think, really, really cleverly played. They didn't reveal a lot of that. So I thought that was a good reveal. And I'd forgotten even some of the members of the Thunderbolts team. So I didn't realize Ghost was in there. That
Yep.
was cool
Yep.
when I saw Ghost in there. I like that from Ant-Man and the Wasp. That was cool to see her back. And Crossbones? Is it Crossbones?
Taskmaster.
Sorry, Taskmaster.
Yes.
Appeared, and I'm like, oh, where was she from? And then dead. I'm like, oh.
It's a bit like Suicide Squad with all those characters
Yeah.
in there. Somebody had to die, and she was, look of all of them, she's probably the right pick to sort of kill off in the opening 10 minutes, really.
Yeah.
Like, she had a cool fight scene,
Yes.
and she got like one line of dialogue, and then bang, gone.
Yeah, and I was sort of like, oh, is she really dead? And then they panned him close and had the blood dribble
Yes.
from the mask. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yep, that's as dead as you get in a comic book movie. I think pretty much gone. So what did we think of the film? We probably have had maybe a few disappointing entries. I mean, not terrible entries, but probably some maybe lackluster entries as of late since kind of Endgame. Do we think this is restoring Marvel to kind of its glory
Well,
days?
it's funny because I've seen that stat, if you will, leveled that this is the best Marvel movie since Endgame.
No, I'd say best movie since Guardians
Guardians
3.
That's probably
Yeah.
more
Yep.
accurate because if you actually look at what has been out since Endgame, and
Okay,
I'm
yeah, go
going
through
on to
that.
my
Yep.
list in a minute if I can find the thing. Here we go. So since Endgame, we have had in release
Sequential order. Yep.
sequential
Yep.
order. All right, Endgame. We've had Spider-Man: Far From Home. So
Okay, that's solid.
Jake Gyllenhaal
Yep.
and Mysterio.
Yep.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Solid.
like that one.
Yep.
Black Widow movie.
Okay, yeah, that was fun.
Shang-Chi, one of my favourite entries in
Solid.
the MCU. Eternals,
Nah.
Spider-Man No Way Home, which of course is the one where all the villains
Banger.
start
Yes.
showing
Oh,
up.
that was
That
so
was a
cool.
banger.
Yeah,
That was so
right?
cool
That's a
because
great movie.
it was surprising how
Yeah.
much they kept hidden versus what you saw on screen.
And then the
Yeah.
redemption of characters like Jamie Foxx's Electro and,
Yeah.
and this sort of
Yeah.
thing. Really
Yeah.
cool. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
I like that one.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
might be the smaller portion
That's
of
with
that
Scarlet
liked it.
Witch and
Yeah,
Scarlet
that
Witch.
was
Yeah.
very dark.
that's
Yeah.
cool. Yep.
It was Sam Raimi, wasn't it?
Yep.
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay.
Take that.
That's
for
very
what you will.
divisive.
Yeah. Wakanda Forever. Probably again on that sort of.
I forgot about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, with the
Namor.
Namor, that's
Yes,
right.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna
I
say
haven't even
Aquaman.
seen all of that. I turned it off halfway through.
It's a bit of considering how good the first Black Panther was. You know,
Yeah.
you sort of wonder what
I
could
think,
have been.
they had to retro rights
Of course.
pretty quickly
Yeah.
with the
with Chadwick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ant-Man Quantumania, of course. That was
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Boom. But then to your point, Ben, Guardians 3.
Yep.
That's a banger as far as I'm concerned.
love that one. Gosh, that was
The
emotional.
Marvels, that sort of sits in that midpoint.
I liked
me.
that. I liked it.
Yep.
I still
but
haven't seen that.
I don't
I
think it
forgot
was as
about it
good
too.
as Guardians 3.
Yep. And then after that, we've got Deadpool and Wolverine, which I think we all pretty much gave close to perfect scores after
Deadpool and Wolverine was amazing, but I feel that's more of a Fox universe.
It is, and it's
Yeah.
very much the wink,
Yeah.
talking to camera
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
If you know, and it's great. But as a movie, objectively on its own, you could
Okay.
poke holes in it. So you can sit there going,
It's
"Do you know
not-
what? People
It's not
say,
a terrible run,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
There's
Yep.
it's probably a
And of
50
course,
probably.
Captain America.
Of course,
Oh,
the
Brave
Brave,
New
New
World.
World. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to say it's been the best one since Endgame, I think is a little bit harsh.
I think
But
it is too.
It's a solid.
Yeah.
It's a solid entry, for
Yeah.
sure.
It's probably the best written of all the films. Like you can look at a film a couple of different ways. Writing is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the action is sort of another part of it as well. When you can, a good film will have both combined, Endgame as a result.
Yep.
Or you can have a really well written film with some B-grade characters like we have with Thunderbolts, turned out really, really well. Or you can go crazy with your special effects and your action like Quantumania,
Yeah.
and it was terrible.
Yeah. Well, you talk about writing. You can almost divide it in half. You start off with it's all fun and games, almost a bit cheeky, quite a few humorous laughs and things like that. They're trying to work out, how to be a team together, but also tripping over each other almost. But then it gets pretty darn serious, right? There's that halfway point where the Sentry sort of comes in, and I got to say I love the silhouette of the Sentry. Like just
the void.
the blackness and things like that point where the little girl disappears.
Far out.
That was a point in the movie.
Red Guardian saves her, and it's
Yeah.
this big thing. Oh, you're safe. Boom, and it's just
Yeah.
it's just Thanos-like in its
Yeah.
instantaneousness of
Yeah.
just bang. You're just nothing. You're
Yeah.
ash.
And
almost,
it's like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
you almost felt this, wave come over you as the
Yes.
audience member watching, and it got quite serious, and they sort of did what they had to do to, get out of it, and it became a bit of what's that movie I mentioned the other day with Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and
Inception.
Inception, yeah, it came very Inception-esque.
Oh,
jumping
yes,
through
yeah,
the
it's
dreams
it's all
and things like that.
mind games and
The-
stuff.
Yeah.
The
Look, I-
shame rooms, as
Yeah.
she called it.
Yeah, well, I said this to Ben on the trip home. I was like, I'd love to hear a clinical psychologist's view on that, because the parallels of it's basically mental illness.
It's depression,
really. It's
isn't it? Or
depression.
bipolar,
It's the
yeah.
black dog. It's all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, and I'd love to hear their take on it, because to say that they sort of cleverly hit it. No, it was really obvious.
I think it
as to what
was-
you were talking about here.
Yeah, thematically for the character, for the Bob character, the Robert
Yep.
character, they did talk about substance abuse and essentially the good days and the bad days. So it wasn't.
And he was traveling the
hidden.
world to get the next high.
Yeah.
That's how he got, where he was in India and things like that, to taste medicines.
And then
and
it's
things like that.
Julia Dreyfus's character was basically saying, you have to prove you're better than that, and just the manipulation that was sort of taking place there was really interesting. I just thought it was so well done in that regard, and
Yeah.
you weren't probably expecting that. We were expecting
No.
a Suicide Squad jokey. Oh, we all just run and shoot,
Yep.
sort of stuff, which was there.
Can anyone fly?
Yeah, exactly. And they're them all trying to climb out of that long sort of underground bunker and stuff. All that sort of stuff was there. I think I mentioned it in our Discord. This is the kind of tone that I think Suicide Squad, whichever version you think about, that's the sort of tone they were going for. But Marvel sort of stuck the landing a bit better and made the second half where they have to fight some overpowered thing, against the odds, and they made it work somehow.
Yeah. Oh, it worked brilliantly. I thought the way they fought Sentry was very clever. I love that sort of the mind games or the in your head, and you're fighting not only, physically just punchy, but you're actually fighting something deeper, something more emotional and more complex. I love that. It's right up my alley. I thought, though, you're quite right, like the David Harbour character, probably the one benefit you have of a team-up movie is establishing these characters in other films, that you don't have to have that sequence like in Suicide Squad where you try to ram all that backstory into a very short space of time.
Couldn't agree more. How exciting was it when Bucky came along, right? And he's shooting the opposition convoy.
Yes.
And everyone's like, cool. And then he shoots a grenade at their car, and you're like, oh, it's on. This is cool.
Well, they're ultimately fugitives at that point.
Of course.
The congressman's got to do what a congressman's got to do, right? I thought it was so well done.
But you can do that.
Yeah.
You don't need any introduction to Bucky.
Yeah, he even said, "Oh, you know my history."
Yeah.
To the girl at one point.
I think it's a big advantage for a film like this, where you need the team and you need the dynamics.
But they did also expand on like the John Walker characters, right? Like he's been seen in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series.
Yes.
That come out. But then they sort of expanded on that whole, he was Captain America effectively, like that's how he was portrayed, but then he, sort of fell off the wagon, for lack of a better term, and how he, turned into a crap father, essentially, and how that sort of battle that he faced. And it was only a minute and a half sort of flashback, but it gives you that, all right, it gives you that little bit of, because he's the cocky character that nobody seems to like, really, and then a minute or two later, you're just like, oh, I've got a soft spot for this guy all of a sudden. Like, it's just well written, making you care about all these characters, whether you know their backstory or not.
Yep. Yeah, I thought the humor in this was amazing.
David Harbour chewed all the scenery he could find.
He comes in beeping, and she's like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, who is that? Oh no, oh no."
I loved his arc, like, and in the sense, he's got that very Soviet, style
for glory.
And part of it, but then there's obviously the fact he's been in America and he sees this sort of the commercial side, and he's always trying to, come up with things. And the first post-credit sequence in the supermarket.
Yep. The Wheaties box.
With the Wheaties box, and he's trying to sell that poor lady that he's on the box. Was just great comedy. That was just absolutely brilliantly done. And then, I couldn't stop laughing when the final credit sequence came in. And Scotty, we'll get to you on this when we talk about this in a bit more detail. But when he rocks in with his tracksuit, his blinged up tracksuit, and he's like, "Oh, the copyright! Yes, I've thought of that." And he's got the Z
with a Z,
and it's stuck onto the shirt. It's so well done. And he just played that role so well.
So before we get to the rocket ship in the room, shall we say?
Yeah.
The concept of new Avengers, right? So, and maybe Scotty, you can talk to this as far as the comic history a bit better. But they did actually. There's apparently is a bit of a in canon. This is copyright strike where we know Sam Wilson is putting a new Avengers team together. And the flash forward was, Sam Wilson is we can't be the Avengers. They're the Avengers. We're the new Avengers. And literally the new Avengers logo comes up. And when we went to see it, someone in the audience, obviously a big new Avengers fan, they screamed in delight. And it's happening.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that you could almost, if there was to be a direct sequel to this in 2-3 years time, you could almost brand it New Avengers because that was the logo came up. They had their new outfits and all that sort of stuff. It was quite interesting that they so blatantly push that
Yeah.
rather than just a one-line reference to, something that somebody knows. New Avengers, Scotty, a brief history rundown type thing. Is it one of those like X-Men? Everyone's been a part of it at some point?
There was this is like a mosaic of various Marvel storylines and sort of comics that they did. So following on from what we sort of saw as the Civil War side of things, the Avengers were essentially disbanded and then sort of rebuilt as various teams with various members, some doing covert work, some being the public face of the Avengers. And then, you had Luke Cage running a set of the Avengers. Tony Stark was doing a version of the Avengers as well. And so I think what they've kind of done here is they've taken elements of that. The original concept of the Thunderbolts is there as well, because this is actually very, very different to what the Thunderbolts were originally created for in comic book form. They were a team of rebranded...
Baron Zemo was like the leader?
Correct, rehabilitated villains.
Right, yep.
Very much in the vein of the Suicide Squad, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
But you did not know at the core phase that they were actually villains. They held it back for a hell of a long time.
Right.
Building them up as a genuine superhero team, and then at a core moment, they reveal that the leader of the team is in fact one of Captain America's longest-standing villains, Baron Zemo.
Yes, gotcha.
Yep, and it essentially sort of begins to fall apart, and the tapestry becomes unraveled, and they splinter as a group, and then reform as another version for the group. But yeah, they've taken bits and pieces from all over comic book lore to create what we're seeing on the screen at the moment.
Cool. Yep.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. And the journey, something's coming from space. Tell us about that.
Interdimensional? What was the term they used? Not extraterrestrial.
Well, the first clue in the post-credits was they said, and there's this big space battle that no one's telling us about. And at that moment, I just went, space, all right, we know. I just, in my head, I'm going... Maybe it's Silver Surfer. Maybe we see like the Galactus silhouette of his helmet or something like that. What did we see, Scott? Talk us through it.
Well, after about 2 minutes of build-up, we finally get the satellite feed come up on the screen. In microseconds, I know exactly what it is. That rocket ship on the screen. And I'm jumping up and down. I'm giddy. Joe's looking at me like I'm a lunatic from the asylum. And then you see... the chrome of the ship as it comes out of the shadow, and it rotates.
Yeah.
And right there on the screen, and I've literally got goosebumps and I'm saying this. Fantastic Four symbol.
It took me a lot longer, Scotty. I needed the rotation and the four. But when it did, I went, yes! And I was like, did that come out of me? It was very loud.
It was funny because, as you said, Scott and Joe were unable to make the same session as us, and that happened, and the reaction, and we all looked at each other and went, we need to keep this a secret from Scott. This is bad. And so you messaged their group about an hour after we'd seen and gone, so do I need to see it before we initially call? Yes, go see it now.
And make sure you stay for the final end credit sequence.
It took me by surprise. I
Same.
no idea whatsoever. Yeah. And the hype is real. I am so pumped up for the Fantastic Four now.
Yeah. We saw the David Harbour scene, like after credit scene, and then there's all the regular credits. And Brett turned to me and he said, what do you think is going to be the next one, the final one? And I said, I'd like to see Fantastic Four somehow retrofitted in. Like, doesn't need to be a full reveal or something, just how they fit into the timeline. Are they going to be on TV or we're coming back or something like that? And then you saw the ship come through, and I'm like, I called it. Like,
do you know what the funny thing is leading up to that? If you watch the credits closely, and I think Trent and I saw this, one of the last things you see in the credits is all the songs that were used, and you see like the Avengers theme comes in at one point towards the end of the movie, and one of them on the far right hand side is Fantastic Four theme written by such and such. And Trent and I look at I don't remember that.
Yeah, we're going to have to go to the internet and find out which scene that played in.
Because we missed it.
Yeah.
But of course that comes up when you see the rocket and stuff. Yeah. It's like, you spoiled your own spoiler there, Marvel.
All right.
Well, at least we know now that the Fantastic Four are going to be the 60s version.
Yes.
It's not going to be an updated version.
No.
They're coming across time and dimensions and the multiverse.
I think that's great. I think it's the right way to do it.
Yes.
So, love it.
I love that. Yeah.
Can I just also say this film looked and felt better than the previous Captain America. Like, we saw it on the same screen, so we saw it on the huge IMAX screen, which is really, really big. And I could see blemishes on the screen for Captain America. I could see CGI potholes and things like that. Like, not that I'm going out of my way to critique, but I could visually see them, and it took me out of the movie a bit because of those blemishes. The Thunderbolts, nothing. It was just seamless, perfect visuals, no issues whatsoever. And I for that reason alone, it raised it up a couple of few bars, And
I think that was always a risk when you've got basically a Superman level villain. Yeah. That fight scene where they're all going, and he's using all the Superman powers. He's got the speed, he's got the strength, he's got the laser eyes effectively. There was a risk that turns into some of the, CG shenanigans we saw from the Zack Snyder Superman sort of fight scenes and stuff. But you're right, it all went really well. And the effect of Sentry becoming the Void and the blackness was just really, really cool. Just all you could see was the white of the pupils and stuff. We joked about the fact that that's going to be the easiest repaint figure Hasbro have ever released, just all black. But yeah, I thought the graphics were really well done.
And they came out with guns blazing, him in his accurate comic book outfit.
Just lean into it, right?
And it made sense for the film.
She was holding the S, belt buckle, and you just knew, this is going in the right direction. He's just going to chuck that suit on from the get-go. No big evolutionary, choice and things like that. I love that. They need to do that more often these days, so well done.
And I love the Valentina character. She's kind of like a twisted Nick Fury type thing where she sort of operates from the shadows and she's playing the political game, but she's doing it. She leans evil as opposed to like Nick Fury and stuff. And the whole right at the end, she's like, we own you now. I think she's going to come into play later on, I suspect.
Where do we think we may see the Sentry turn up again? Looking at the bigger and maybe not so obvious Marvel universe in terms of cinematic form.
I think he's got to be in your Doomsday or Secret Wars thing because he's your Hulk replacement, right? He can obliterate anything, but it's that when the Hulk goes crazy, as we've seen in Age of Ultron and something, it's a double-edged sword, right? And same thing. Hey, we really need someone to be able to super punch Galactus in the face. Sentry's your man, but it's a risk. So I think that's where he's going to come into play. He won't be there. It's a bit like Captain Marvel is the same problem. She's so powerful, you can't have her fight Thanos from the get-go because it's almost too easy. So it'll be that battle of, literally in his case, good versus evil inside himself.
I'm curious if they get around to doing a World War Hulk film.
Ooh.
Where you've got a off-the-leash, out-of-control, Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
That might be the weapon they deploy to put him down.
Calm the Hulk down.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, wasn't that Thor 3?
Yeah.
We won't go there.
Very good.
Lots
very good.
of possibilities.
That's good. Well done. Well, very enjoyable evening with dinner and a few beers.
Rating out of 19, should we?
Rating out of 19. Yeah.
Go around the table.
I'll start with, I reckon, I give this a 16. I really enjoyed it. For me, I don't think it. Well, we'll see when we get to Fantastic Four. I think Fantastic Four is going to be with that beautiful retro style of filmmaking. They've got an actual fantastic car. Herbie's a puppet. There's a lot of sort of practical type effects, and it will have a very distinct feel. So this, there's a criticism or something good. The film does feel like a lot of the other films in terms of the visuals and the way it's shot and the direction. And maybe that's good that they're cohesive. But again, when Taskmaster showed up, I'm like, which film was she in? I couldn't remember. That she was from sort of.
She was in Black Widow, wasn't she?
Yes. It all just and maybe that's not a criticism.
Yep.
But for that, I think 16, really, really solid. Really enjoyed it. But I think I'll have films this year that elevate towards that 19. Yeah, a bit more so.
For me, I'm going to give it 17. I loved it. I felt a little bit the opposite. I loved extrapolating, oh, where'd that character come from? That's right, they came from there, they came from there. This is where Marvel built their legacy on grabbing characters, and you might see them in one movie, and then 3 movies later they've got, you know,
show up.
they're another again, and then, you know, 4 movies later there's, you know, 5 of them in the same movie. And things. This with the Avengers departing and things like that, it's getting harder and harder to bring these characters back. And I love that, you know, through this legacy of now over 20, 25 years, these characters can still come back together and fill in, you know, create a movie, and it's good. You know, I felt that was lacking in the Brave New World or whatever we saw. You know, it was a TV-driven build up, and that was it, sort of thing with the other movies and stuff. But for this all came from movies, and I thought it was cool. You know, where we didn't see this from Suicide Squad or anything like that, or even Justice League, you know, who just sort of all of a sudden had the movie together, and they had Cyborg and Aquaman and Aquaman had his own movie. Anyway, all of a sudden they're all part of the Magnificent Seven. But these ones, you know, they had they had history, they had depth, they had the mourning and loss of, you know, sisters and daughters and things like that. You know, I thought it was really cool for that reasons, and my daughter loved it as well. So that's always gets you know, a big thumbs up as well. So yeah.
Look, I probably would have said 16 originally based on sort of what we saw, and you go, okay, it's Marvel's take on the Suicide Squad. And to your point, Trent, people who don't follow this stuff as closely as we do might have just gone, oh, another ragtag team of villains saving the world? Whatever. They don't know the difference between Marvel and DC. But when they started going down the mental health route, I was like, that elevated it for me. I'm just like, this is not just taking characters you know and throwing them together. This is trying to say something in amongst all the fantasticalness of it. I think it addresses, you know, puts a lot of stuff out there that, you know, people would feel like the Sentry at times, where there is literally this inner battle that they're fighting. And I'm like, I think that's really great when you can walk out of that a quotey fingers superhero movie and have those sorts of conversations and questions. I think that gives it a 17 for me.
Nice. Yep.
Everything you guys said, 100%. I'll add the John Walker's story and him growing as a character here. Wyatt Russell knocked it out of the park.
He was so good.
He was so good. And he really brought to life the comic book version of John Walker that I remember, the unhinged Captain America who becomes a fallen hero that ultimately seeks a redemption arc through the comic books, and 10 out of 10 from his performance there.
His shield being made into a taco. Even at the end, he's still trying to fold it out. Like, that was funny.
There's even a bit of truth to that, because he never actually had and when he became US agent, he didn't have an adamantium shield.
Right.
Like, it was just an it was a decent shield, but it wasn't Captain America level of shieldage. I'll give it a 16. I thought it was really, really well done. But I will give a 19 out of 19 for that post-credit scene. It's just
I reckon
cream on the cake, boys.
It's probably one of the best. You know,
Yes.
it was just funny, and then it had that moment and the reveal, goosebumps.
And I think
that goes
that's the
back.
formula.
That goes back to the times when you saw Nick Fury at the desk, and it's like, we're building a team.
That's
you know,
right.
and then you know, codename Hulk or something. You know, Bruce Banner. That's when you're like,
And I think
cool
that's
is this,
the formula that they
Yeah.
were doing for a time, and they've sort of moved away for whatever reason. It's one funny one to make you go, that's cool, and then a holy crap, stick around right to the end. I think they keep doing that. Yeah.
And it was, you know, like it was 2 minutes, right, or whatever the length was. It was a proper.
long.
it was
it
the
wasn't just.
It was the longest after credit scene in Marvel history.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, and I rate that. It just felt quality, right? You know, so
To me, it was as telegraphing as the end of the first Avengers movie, when Thanos turns around and sort of says, "Fine, I'll do it myself."
Yeah.
And you just knew straight away that shit got real, and we're on a journey now.
I thought Bucky was awesome as well. Like, he had a
Yes.
lot of savage history and stuff. And there was one point where they said age and stuff, and he's like, I was like 90. You know, like, I thought that was cool. You know,
Very good. All right. How are we going for time, Master Frank?
We are pretty much over the hour mark
All
at this
right.
point.
Well, State of the Nation, we'll just have to wait for another
can do
time.
that.
We also have a Metroplex unboxing that we're going to do at some point, because that is another G1 toy that you've added to your collection thanks to Morgatron.
Yeah, shout out to Morgatron. I've picked up a Metroplex and Computron, all complete in the last week. Oh, Ben is reaching out. Oh, yes. Also from Morgatron. What else did you receive there, Mr. Ben?
From Morgatron. Apparently, these Hot Wheels Racerverse
How good are these?
Are doing the rounds, and there's they've done a few He-Man ones in the past, single carded, and I've never seen the Skeletor. I don't know if it exists in single card form. They do Star Wars ones, and Toy Story and everything you can imagine. And now they've got a 2-pack with He-Man versus Skeletor. And Skeletor's riding the Land Shark, like a go-kart style version, and He-Man's got the Wind Raider, but it's got wheels.
But they're translucent, so you can't see them.
Yeah, I didn't even notice they were there. And it's got some cool artwork of He-Man and Skeletor battling off. And I hadn't seen it in stores. I've seen some other people around Australia picking them up.
They're really cool.
I needed one, and that's it. I don't need any more.
No, that's all you need. Just to describe them, it's almost like Ratfink, right?
Yes,
like you've got that cartoon style vehicle, and then this larger than life, again, super deformed, but they're really nice. Like they look really good.
Done.
The aesthetics lovely. So nice pickup.
I like it.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone, gentlemen, for another great chat, and looking forward to. I think I have to be in the same cinema as Scotty when we see Fantastic Four. Cause I think watching the movie will be one thing, but watching Scott's reaction will be another. So
and also
tee that up.
One little shout out, massive congratulations to Truly Outrageous.
Yes.
Who VIA had some issues with Instagram, actually got back on and is kicking goals now with the loyal subjects and things for the gem, redo of the toys and things, to the point where the loyal subjects have reached out to him and asked his advice and as a consultant
to
on
help
the
on the
line.
line.
How good!
Which is just so cool. He must be just jumping, in through the hoops to do anything and everything.
Awesome.
So happy to see that news.
Yes.
And sent. I think you sent a message
Yes.
as well, but sent a message just. With just the joy, essentially, and the congratulations for being part of that. And we have to try and tee that up to have Damien come back on and chat, because when we're talking with people here in Adelaide that are working on these toy lines, that's just fantastic. And it's well-deserved for someone who's been flying the gem flag and has a lot of not only information, knowledge, and passion for the property, but also a lot of very, very exclusive and rare items that I think will contribute to maybe some packaging decisions that Loyal Subject makes and the like. So that is wonderful news, and we'll follow that journey closely. And I can't wait to chat to Damien about that.
It's going to be amazing. Yep.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Well, thank you, everyone, for tuning into another episode of Toy Power. To all our patrons, thank you so much for your support and chatter on the Discord. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in once more. Stay safe, take care of one another, and we will see you around the toy aisles.
And until next time, good journey!
You can find the Toy Power team at all the usual online places. Facebook.com/ToyPowerPodcast, @ToyPowerPodcast on both Twitter and Instagram, or have your say and email us, toypowerpodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to the show on both iTunes and Stitcher, and please leave us a review. Otherwise, we just assume we're awesome.